What's up, How to Hardscape podcast listeners? I am Mike Arnold of Creekside Outdoor Living. We design and craft outdoor living spaces so good, you'll want to ask it out on a date on Friday night. And I am a hardscaper.
And that was such a good introduction, Mike. And thank you so much for joining us here on this episode.
100%, brother. How you doing?
I'm not too bad. And I know we got a lot to talk about in this interview, and I'm excited to have you on the show. I've seen the work you've been doing on your Instagram account. We've been following along. We've been posting the jobs that you've been putting out there. So happy to have you on the show. And let's just jump right into this, Mike.
For sure, bro.
How did you get into hardscape?
Well, I got into hardscaping because I was initially into landscaping, and how I got into landscaping was I was actually going to school at Purdue University for architectural engineering and construction management. I started this thing up as a way to kind of pay my way through college. And the longer that I got into college, the more I understood that I didn't want to be in college. College is supposed to tell you what you're supposed to do in life, and that's what it taught me. It was to get away from college. So I went full force with the business because it was growing, even though I was using it as a catalyst to pay something that was for a different part of my life. And I'm like, you know what, man, I can always come back to this if I want to. And I never did. So it continued to grow. It was just basically a small, lawn care type of deal. We'd get some mulch jobs, get some planting jobs. You heard the story, and I'm sure I'm singing the chorus of hundreds of other contractors, but that's exactly what it was. And then we started getting some higher end projects, and I discovered that this is what I kind of want to do. Everybody's a landscaper. There's not everybody's a landscaper. There's a lot of people who are landscapers, but not a lot of people who are hardscapers. There's not a lot of people who can design properly and craft properly these outdoor living spaces. And I feel that there was a hole in the market too, because there were people who would classify themselves as hardscapers, and stuff just looked like garbage. You go from the inside of a house that is, designed by an architect, and it's in its place, it looks great. And then you just walk outside and there's just nothing there. And it was just a square, and it was falling apart. And it's like, man, the outdoor living space needs to be an extension of the experience that people are having on the inside of their homes. And where I was not seeing that happen, I saw that gap in the market, and we wanted to jump right in. So that's the long and the short of it.
Absolutely. And I love that you identified that gap and you went all in for that. Now, what was it, about hardscape design, hardscaping that really drew you into there to kind of go all in on it?
Yeah, man, I think it's the creative aspect of it. And I am not necessarily a creative per se. I have people on my staff that are that creative talent. But it's just something that isn't the typical landscaping thing. It's something that's beyond that. It's something that is the design styles are always changing from contemporary and modern to traditional and whatever. That you can sort of achieve that with planting plants, sinking paver borders in the ground, but nothing really touches that like hardscaping. And everything is kind of, hardscape is the nucleus to the outdoor living space. Everything else can kind of plug into that and branch off of it, like kitchens and lighting and water features that you can't really do. I mean, I suppose you can with softscapes, but it's so much more enjoyable with the hardscape. So that's what I like about it, is that it's always something different. Obviously every single project is different, but the industry as a whole is always evolving, and design concepts are always evolving. And that's what I really like. I love being excited about it's. It's hard to be excited about, going out and cutting grass, right? I mean, I personally enjoy it sometimes. So it's just a straight stress reliever, but it's the same thing all the time. We do it as part of our services, but man, nothing really catches your eye like a well-crafted, well thought out outdoor living space that is done with, obviously, hardscapes.
Absolutely. So give us a little bit of a timeline in terms of when you started your landscaping business, when you decided to start into hardscaping.
100%. So when I had initially started college, I was actually working with a buddy of mine who owns a company in this area as well. And he's one of my best friends in the world. And I started doing my thing. I think it was around 08 or 09 or so. So it hasn't been, decades long, but it's certainly been, some time underneath my belt.
Definitely. And coming into landscaping and making that transition towards hardscaping, were you able to get some of your landscaping clients signed up early on? I mean, what were those steps to when you decided you're going to go into this hardscaping category? What were the steps to kind of get those first initial clients into your business?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't know that I specifically flipped a switch and said, oh man, hardscapes, like we're going after hard. And no doubt, like that was something that interested us, but we kind of took things as they came. And
Mhm.
we took some patio projects and then we showcased them, and people obviously loved what we did, and it blew up from there. So I think it was just pretty organic, man. People started looking at the stuff that we were doing compared to the stuff that other people were doing, and they saw something different, and they wanted to use us. So I think it was we established a niche in the market because of our previous experiences with that.
Coming back to the design process of what you're churning out, how important is it to you to be able to meet with the customer, talk to them about the design, and actually putting that design forth before actually doing the project? Like, is this something that you said you didn't flip a switch and get into hardscaping, but when you started those first hardscaping projects, were you doing designs, or is this something that you figured later on that you were going to start doing these designs and putting them forward to clients?
Yeah, man. Before the design part, the design division of Creekside, it was your boy with a can of orange spray paint, like just being that artist in someone's grass and painting a
Mhm.
picture of what this thing could look like, and trying to figure out like, hey, what do you guys think about this? Is there enough space here? And okay, well, we could do this in this type of paper that's in this catalog, and obviously that's not enough. And it was through doing that enough times, and having enough headaches trying to explain our vision to the client, that we're like, man, we got to do something. We got to step up our game here, and that was for sure the catalyst into what is now our design department.
Getting into this client relationship, getting into this sales process. I mean, before you get a customer contacting you, from when you started your business, whether it be the landscaping side of things, the hardscaping side of things, when you first started your business, how were you acquiring these clients? And what was the most powerful way to acquire these clients? When you're just first starting out.
When I was first starting out, I have to say it was a lot of, you know, friends and family, right? That's your best clientele when you're just starting out. You're Facebooking all of your homies. You're calling up your aunts and uncles like, hey man, I could I cut your grass and could you pay me? So you're starting out that way, and starting to do projects for them, and then they refer you. The best, the most powerful source has been word of mouth, no doubt for us. People that are, hey, you did this so and so for this person. They're an aunt of mine, and I would love for you to try to replicate that over here, replicate that experience. So at first it was the people you know, and then afterwards, the most powerful leads that we have gotten have been from friends and family of the people that we've done work for.
And let's sort of give our new business owners a little bit of a timeline in terms of you're starting out, you're grinding, you're working hard to get those leads into your business. It's a little bit difficult, but then after so many years, it just starts to flow smoothly because you're getting those word of mouth clients. When did you feel like that transition started to happen in your business?
Hmm, that's a great question. I would say it took, man, I don't know, maybe 3, maybe 4 years at least. It takes quite a bit of time and quite a bit of projects. You have to have something to showcase. You have to have something to be able to say, I did this and it looks great, to be able to show it to somebody else to where they're going to want you, to where it can now be organic leads. But yeah, it definitely took some time. So it's a lot of grinding in the beginning, no doubt. It's a lot of, it's phone calls, it's emails, it's whatever. Going to knock on people's doors. Like, man, we did the door hanger thing. Everybody's done the door hangers. Oh, I can't stand door hangers, but we did it,
Yeah.
and we got a few. I'll tell you what, door hangers taught me one thing: don't do door hangers. It's not the solution. People, quite frankly, a lot of times would call us up, being like, "Could you not put door hangers on my door?" uh, but you know what? If you do good work, you start with a core base of people and you grow smart. You don't want to go and hire 10 people if you have the work for one. And if all you have is the work for one for 2 years until you start getting that organic lead flow, then that's what you do. And you be content with what you have in terms of growth. And everybody wants to shoot out of the gate with, they want to be the biggest and the baddest company around, but that's not always where the profit is, and that's not always where the opportunity to have your stuff seen by other people is.
Yeah, and I like, just asking that question just to give a little bit of a sense that, it just doesn't happen overnight. At
No.
least 3 years, and those word of mouth clients start coming in, and it gets a little bit easier. But you will have to work for it in those first few years, and until things get a little bit more smooth. And the
Yeah,
idea of, like you said, growing smart is so important.
dude. And that's actually, I know that one of the questions you're going to ask is one, and let's get out of the way now, which is you were going to ask me, what is one of the things that I wished that I would have known when we were just starting the company? And it would have been to grow smart. Because I say all that stuff that I said earlier about growth because that's, for me, we did that. We kind of went out of the gate. We went full bore instead of trying to throttle our work a little bit, throttle our leads, and have a controlled growth. We just said, hey, work's coming to us. We'll take it on. We'll say yes to everything, and then we'll figure out how to do it later. No, that's, you got to control your growth, man. And luckily we figured that out. We figured out what that means and how to do that now. But yes, that is such a critical thing. That's just business economics 101. And it's hard to know that if you are just a guy who thinks I can go and landscape, but you have no business knowledge. I didn't necessarily have business knowledge. I just knew that this is something that I could do. But looking back on it now, if there was something that I could tell myself back then, it would have been grow smart, idiot.
And Mike, since you brought that up, let's dig a little bit further into that because it's something that is just so important in business. And when we start these businesses, a lot of us, we don't think that way. We think, this project comes along, let's take it, I need it. But, what does grow smart mean in your business now? Like, what are you looking at in your business to decide I need to hire another employee, or I need that piece of equipment, or I should invest in this tool? What are you looking at in terms of making these decisions?
It's a great question. That has everything to do with your balance sheet and your profit loss from last year, and economic outlook. How many people you have on your staff right now? What condition is your equipment in right now? How much are you paying for in equipment rental for right now? All of those questions play a key component, and it's not limited to those questions. And you don't learn those things until when you're deep into the game. But for us, yeah, man, it's looking at what is our capacity for work. It's no longer just throwing money at a problem or throwing more employees or more trucks at a problem. It's looking at, okay, what is our workflow? Okay, what are our resources? We kind of do an audit of the human resources and the material resources that we have available to us, and then we go from there. If you have a lot of trucks, but they're all outdated, you have to consider that. You have to consider, look, I'm going to have to do a major update here in the next few years. Or if you have a ton of people, but not a lot of work, okay, well, you're going to have to make a decision. You're going to have to make a decision to either cut back on your people, lay some people off, or you're going to have to I don't know, grind the gears, man, and get some more of that profitable work. And I think the other thing too is that it's so tempting, and I know this, even a lot of potential clients know this as well, is that there's a lot of landscapers out there that are hungry for work, that they'll do it at a detriment, and they'll do it at basically their cost, and they don't even know it. That's the saddest part about it. And I've done it myself before. Is I didn't know my numbers, and when you don't know your numbers, you can't really have a good feel for placing a bid on something. You just see a job and you're like, oh my gosh, somebody actually wants me to do a project for them. and you feel like I'm so honored, and they'll go and dangle cash in front of you and say, well, I know this thing was $40,000, but I'll tell you what, I'll give you cash right now, and I won't get any other quotes if you can do it for 35. You have to have the stamina to stand your ground and go, look, man, I know my costs, I know my overhead, I know what I have to recoup, and I have no wiggle room. So when you can have that type of um, what would you call it, persistence, and stamina to do that, then I think you're set up for growth properly, because you're not going to do things and have a negative financial impact later on in life.
Now, getting to getting the sales to sustain your business. Let's talk a little bit about your sales process. When somebody contacts you, where do you take that from there? Whether it's an email, a phone call, somebody contacts you, there's a lead there. Where do you take that from there? Can you give us a little bit of a rundown in terms of that?
Yeah, 100%, man. Well, I think the most important thing is to screen, the call a little bit, to figure out, okay, is this somebody that wants a very, very, very small project and something that I'm not going to really want to take on. You have to make sure that the project is going to match your work and the thing that you want to do. So that's really important. You want to try to squeeze a budget out of them at the very first phase. And man, I would say 9 times out of 10, but I think it's more like 99 times out of 100. People say, "Oh, I don't have a budget." Mm, they have a budget, man. If you tell them, well, okay, well, what if this was $200,000? Well, they'll come up with a budget real fast and say, whoa, 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 no. Well, I thought you didn't have a budget. So I think that's pretty important. You start digging into the project a little bit over the phone, and say, okay, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, it sounds like, and obviously this is without me being there, this is without me knowing site conditions or machinery access, but it sounds like we're in, maybe $30,000 range, 50,000, whatever the case may be. Does that sound like it's, reasonable to you? Does that sound like it's what you guys are comfortable spending on this project? And right then and there, they're gonna go, oh yeah, that's about what we were thinking. Or oh no, I thought this was a $5,000 project. Well, that's a big step right there, because you just recovered so much lost time. It's crazy to even think about. So that's one of the biggest parts right there. You screen them over the phone. Next, I want to know where they heard about me from. Was it just flipping through the book, or were you referred to me by somebody? If you were flipping through the book, I might want to dig a little bit deeper, because if you're flipping through the book, it means you're looking for a lot of times, the lowest cost guy. And I really need to communicate to people, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not known for being the lowest cost guy. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. We're known for being one of the more expensive guys, but it's because we're going to install a product that lasts, blah, blah, blah. And that has deterred people away before too, is me just being flat out honest. So I think one of the biggest key things is to avoid, and I don't want to call them time wasters, because people are people, and they either know the industry or they don't know the industry. So them in and of itself, they are not time wasters. But those, the going out there and spending all this time, you have to drive there, you have to talk with them, then you have to drive back. It's a lot of time lost to not even be within the ballpark budget. So that's really key.
You talked about the importance of screening your leads in your business. Because you're going through that screening on the phone with them, when you're going out there on that initial consultation, do you charge for that?
That depends. That's a great question. So if it was a lead that came from somebody that I know, or somebody that is a referral from somebody that we did a project for, automatically no, I'm not going to charge for a consultation. But a lot of other times we are. We have even right now, we have a really, really heavy call volume. And one of the ways to kind of determine, who's really serious about this, who wants a Creekside job rather than just a landscape job, is to charge for that consultation. I think that it does establish a lot of brand value when you do that. And some people will turn you down, and that's okay. But then some people won't. Some people won't turn you down, and you will go out there and they will be a little bit more invested. Man, I can't tell you how many times somebody has called for a consultation. I went out there and they didn't even show up. Man, that nothing makes you feel like more crap that you're just sitting there like, wow, I really am the scum of the earth, I guess. Like,
Mhm.
no, I know my value. I know the value of my brand, and we're gonna charge for it. There's a monetary value to the advice and the wisdom that seasoned hardscapers have. And I think that it's kind of a cheapening of the industry to not, at least from time to time, charge for a consultation.
That's awesome to hear. And, we've interviewed now, I think you're coming on our eighth or ninth hardscaper, and there's so many varying views when it comes to consultations. But I
Hmm.
feel like yours is the best kind of middle ground. If you're getting a referral, you're not charging for that consultation. Otherwise, yes, because you're taking the time. And like you said, nothing is worse than somebody not showing up to that consultation.
Right. Yep, man. I did so many years of that. That'd probably be another thing I'd go back in time to tell myself to. But at the same time, just starting out, you can't do that because nobody knows who you are, and you have to
Mhm.
be known in the community. You have to be known for the work that you do before you can start pulling stuff like that.
I'm glad that you added that on too. Now, you getting into that initial consultation, that initial meeting. What are you talking with the client? Like, what topics are you covering? What questions are you asking, so that you have enough information to go back, either prepare a quote, prepare a design, whatever you're gonna do.
Sure. Well, it depends. Obviously, we have a wide range of calls. We've got everything from drainage to, hey, I just need some plants in the ground, to, yeah, the full blown outdoor living space or brand new construction, whatever. So when you're talking outdoor living space, I want to know a lot. I want to know, how are you going to use this space? What kind of colors are you naturally drawn to? Are you a modern contemporary type of person, or are you not? Are you the type of person that will entertain lots of people here? Will you be entertaining at night? Do you like to grill outside? Do you like to eat outside? All those questions play an important role. Do you have kids? Okay, cool. How old are they? Oh, they're about to go away to college. Okay. Do you still want to have a space for them, or do you want to be empty nesters and kind of have a little bit more of a tighter space? If they're going to throw a pool into it, I kind of want to know all their short and long term plans, because it will definitely, if even if they want something now that is different from what they want later, that later thing may end up positively or negatively impacting them in the future if we don't plan for that now. So I kind of want to hear their everything. Tell me everything. Tell me everything about you guys, where you guys work, how often do you spend time at home, how often do you vacation, and obviously that's a dynamic that's shifting rapidly with this whole coronavirus thing too. So yeah, that's a basic rundown of the type of questions that I would ask a client.
Gotcha. So then you've got all that information. You go back. Are you preparing a quote based on that? Are you doing a design for everybody, or do you have like a basic design and for a customer that doesn't need that much of a visual, and a 3D design for a customer that wants that? Where do you take all this information from that initial consultation?
Sure. So if you come across somebody they just want the absolute basic, no design needed type of project, we go back to, there's a can of spray paint for that, right? So I'll go into the backyard, put on some muck boots if I need to, and we'll start going to town with the spray and go, okay, how do you guys feel about this space? Is this too crammed? Is this not enough space? Do you need more space? So obviously, based off the things that I know, I can quote that, but I can't attach a price to something that I don't know, right? It's like going into Ford and saying, "Hey, give me a price for a truck." Well, what are they going to say? You want a sunroof? Do you want your seats air conditioned? Do you want your steering wheel heated? I'm going to say, heck yeah, to all of those. But if I were to say, no, 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 don't ask me those questions. Just give me a price for a truck, they're going to look at me like I'm on drugs, because there's a probably a $40,000 price swing between their most basic truck and their most expensive truck. So likewise, I can't quote what I don't know, and I need to know what you want. And unless you can tell me specifically what you want, you need to hire me to do a design for you. And we'll streamline right into that as well. We there's not a single design that is done for free. And there are a number of people in my area, and I'm sure in the entire hardscape world, that still do designs for free. And gosh, that is, man, what I urge you to stop. You are, it devalues the industry when we do designs for free, and it devalues your own time. There is a value to your time that you could be spending with your wife and your kids or your hobbies or whatever else. Because here's the deal. When people get just a free design, yeah, sometimes they go with you, but then sometimes they send it to 6 other contractors to quote you out. And you just did that work for somebody else. It just happened with me the other day. Somebody did 6 revisions. They were on revision number 6 with a client right near my location. And we came in there and they weren't happy with the revisions. They gave me the design. I quoted it out and I made little modifications with my pencil, and I'm doing the job. All the work that contractor did is now for nothing. So that I think is really, really crucial. And we charge quite a bit. I think that we actually charge way more, not just like, a couple dollars, $10, $50 more for design than anybody in my area, but we charge a lot more than anybody else in our in our area for design, because we are going to take a lot of care, and I do believe that there's a lot of value to that design. So if they do end up going with us for design, there's of course a little bit of turnaround time, to which then we'll go to work on it, put it in queue, and then once it's all ready to rock and roll, we'll bring it back out to them and show them what the concepts that we've come up with, and see if we need to make any tweaks from there, and go from there. Then now I have something to quote. Now I have something to attach a price to.
Now, Mike, you said a lot of interesting things there. Designs, absolutely charge for them. And you even expanded on that by saying that you guys charge a lot for them. And
Yep.
There's so much that goes into picking a price point for your business. Design work, it's not like an install where you're pricing out the materials and all this, but there is some thought going into deciding how much you're going to charge a customer for a specific design. There's the like you talk about, you're going to take care of them. There's that customer care. There's the value of having a design. There's the perceived value. There's a lot of different variables that go into choosing a price for a design that you're going to charge. What thought process went into choosing the price point for what you're going to charge a customer for that design?
Sure. Well, a lot of it is, everybody's on these forums that are going, what do you charge per square foot? What do you charge per square foot? and the pros are screaming, stop charging per square foot. Charge based off of what your costs are and what you need to make. So likewise, it's sort of similar to that. It's, hey, what does the software cost us? What do the computers cost us? What does the design team cost us? And then what do we need to do to make some sort of profit? And quite frankly, a lot of the times even though we're charging so much for design, at the end of the year, we're flat or lower in terms of what we brought into what we paid out. And I'm okay with that because, again, my end goal is not necessarily to pull a profit from the design, but to have my client have a visual representation of what we can do for them. But it's me looking at the project and what they're going to be needing and trying to make a decision based off of how long is this going to take, how long is this going to cost the company, how much is this going to cost the company rather, and then give them a number from there.
Yeah. And, so much thought goes into that in pricing out certain things. Now, getting back to that customer experience, whether you guys make a design, now, where do you take that design from there, that quote from there? Do you meet with them in person, or is it okay that you maybe send over the design and what the quote looks like, and maybe call them up and talk to them? Where does that all go from the point you have that completed and you're ready to present that client?
Yeah, no doubt. So I definitely want to meet them in person. Too much is lost in translation, just, sending over a video or doing something like that. Like I want to be there in person, and I want to see them face to face. I want them to know that I care. I want them to know that, man, we've got our heart and soul into this layout and this design, and that they can ask me any question in the world and it's not going to bother us. And we'll sit there for 2 hours if that's how long it takes to get to where we've established an actual firm, good layout that they would want. So I definitely prefer to meet them where they're at and or have them to my office, whichever works, and do a face-to-face presentation and hash out the details.
Gotcha. So that customer is ready to sign on with you guys. What are your payment plans like with a customer? Does it depend on the job? And can you explain a little bit about your payment plans?
100%. So as a base point, we want a half down at the very beginning to get you on the schedule, and we want very tail end. We'll do half at the end. Now that being said, if we are in the dead of winter, I don't want to sit on all your capital for that long. What we'll do is sometimes we'll do a third, maybe a quarter down, just to get your basically purchase the schedule slot, and then we'll do that second quarter about maybe 2-3 weeks prior to the project starting, so that our requirement of half down is satisfied. And that's a point too that I want to make, is that there's a monetary value to a place on a schedule. And I have heard, I remember one time, this was a long time ago, there was somebody who I don't know if they were in a financial crisis or whatever it was. This is, I'm thinking 3 or 4 years back, and they wanted their money back, and they're saying, we can't do this project right now. And I was trying to be understanding as much as I could, but also saying, like, what's the good of a contract if you're going to renege on it, right? And what's the good of putting the deposit down? And the argument was, well, you haven't done any work yet. Well, you haven't bought any materials yet. Well, actually, I probably have, man. I have probably bought some materials, pre-bought some materials. But outside of anything being done, outside of materials being purchased or not purchased, think about the people that you have to tell, hey, we are, right now we're 10 weeks out, versus telling them, hey, we're 7 weeks out. There are people that will turn you away because you are a certain distance away from now and the start date. So yes, there is absolutely a monetary value to a slot on the schedule. And that was a point that I definitely wanted to make.
My next question for you is kind of taking this interview in a little bit, maybe more of a dark tone. We've been talking about a lot of great subjects, but now we just got into payment plans. And it seems like my next question is, what horror stories in your business would you want to share? It seems like a lot of people have stories around payments with customers or anything like that. But is there any other or any horror story in your business that you'd want to share with our audience to kind of give them a heads up of things that will happen in the business, and maybe they can put some safeguards in place to kind of help them through your experience?
Sure. The only one that I can think of, we haven't had very many, thank the Lord, but there was one that was, again, quite a few years back. I couldn't even tell you what year it was, but it was an outdoor living project, and there was some very minor miscommunications on site, but we worked pretty swiftly to eradicate them and solve them. But the client became very irate, and the relationship that we had from that point on was incredibly hostile. And we got the job finished and went back and obviously tried to collect payment. Door wouldn't open. Phones would ring and nobody would answer. Luckily, it wasn't the biggest project we've ever done. But man, I still to this day have not seen that second half of the payment. And we're talking, it had to have been 12, maybe 13 grand. So it wasn't the biggest nut in the world, but it was not a small one either. And that was just, I still look back on that and I go, man, how could we have avoided that? And I still don't know. I honestly to this day still don't know. So the thing is, man, you're always going to have, there's always that one. It's like my GM just told me the other day, he reminded me, hey, the more trucks we have on the road, the more risk we have. And that applies to everything. The more that you expose yourself, the more risk you're taking on, and therefore the more your chances of something like that happening increase. And you just have to be ready for it and have a plan for it and maybe have a lawyer for it in place. But man, stuff's going to happen, and you can't control everything. You just have to do your absolute best, your hardest, be an honest person with integrity, trust God, and what's going to happen is going to happen. There's just so much not just in hardscaping, not just in business, but in life that we just cannot control. And that's where we just got to say, you know what, God, my life is yours, and I lift it up to you, and whatever you want to have happen is going to happen. And then you just kind of walk away and have your the load is off your shoulders.
Excellent advice. And getting into the on-site topics, the installation, is there any major talking points you want to cover in terms of the installation process, things that you use on the job site, products, tools, anything in particular that you are really gung-ho about?
Yeah, man, pretty passionate about the installation and the methods that we employ. Um, Being in the Midwest, I know you are too, sort of. I mean, you're roughly in the same zone as us, and we have a lot of freeze thaw, right? We've got a lot of potholes in the road. When you go to Arizona, when you go to California, you don't see a whole lot of potholes, and that's because of the radical temperature changes that we have to where we're going to have a frost heave. So everything that you do to your foundation soil is just so critical. You want to make sure that you're compacting with the heaviest compactor you can possibly purchase, and that's what we've done. That using geotextiles, using an open graded stone. I still see guys out there using grade 8. I'm not sure what you call it up by you, but it's that conglomeration of limestone and concrete that turns the jelly when it gets wet. We've completely switched over to the permeable application, not just because it's permeable, but also because it is much more rigid, much more has a lot more integrity to it. So there's that, and then there's of course I can't tell you how many patios we have pulled apart for people that had patios done prior to us being there, to where they had a raised patio or a stoop and a landing, and it was the foundation of this guy was up against the house. You had the load bearing materials up against a non-load bearing house. Now, it's one thing if you have concrete at the very bottom of the house, but when you start and have, wood siding or anything else that's a wood structure, and you've got all this stone and brick weighing against the house, man, we pulled these things out before, and people had their house. I could stick my whole hand through their house, and they had no clue. So we had to pull out the patio and then have another contractor come in and do all this kind of remediation before we continued. So I mean, it was a hang up on our job site, but man, I felt bad for that client. You know what I mean? So, those are the type of things that we believe pretty strongly in. And I think that a lot of our industry, honestly, thanks to our materials vendors for upping the education. Thanks to them, I think that our industry really has caught on. There was a period of time where not so much. And I every once in a while I'll come across a project where there's just terribly poor installation methods. But by and large, I think that the industry has improved with all that stuff.
When it comes to how about a piece of equipment or a tool that you've recently invested in, or you are thinking about investing in the near future, any tool or equipment that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got a skid steer, right? So that probably not that one, but I guess one of the lesser common ones would be a mini excavator, and that was a recent purchase for us, and that has, good gosh, has that sped up our installations on site. And we use it for everything. We use it for installing large patio blocks or installing outcropping boulders. But prior to that, we were using a tooth bucket skid steer, whether it was our small skid steer or our large New Holland skid steers. And that took forever. And not only did it take forever, but it tore up a whole lot of stuff that we didn't want to tear up. You want to keep that subsoil undisturbed. It's merely impossible to do that if you're excavating using a skid steer. So I think that a mini excavator is a very critical key component. Man, I love my buddy Andy Mulder and all of his. He's the king of equipment on a job site. He's got the tilt rotator from Encon. He's got that buggy wheelbarrow guy. So later on in life, it'd be cool to have additional pieces of equipment like that. But I think just as a base point, having our skid steers like we do, and then now this mini excavator that we've had for the last 2 years is definitely a step up.
Closing down this interview, we've gone through a lot of different concepts, and it's been great to have you on the show, Mike, to go over these different things. Now, I want to ask you, do you have any mentors, people online that you look to for inspiration in terms of anything in your business that you'd want to give a shout out?
Heck yeah, man. My boy Sam Gemble. He owns Atlas Outdoor out of Flint, Michigan. Um, that's I've bounced so many ideas off of him. His company is quite a bit larger than mine, and he's been there, done that, and he has helped me process so much. And he's told me, dude, I know you're thinking about doing this. Don't do it. And I'd heed his advice. So I love that guy. He's a great friend. He's one of the most selfless people that I know, and love him to death. So I'm pretty sure he's on social media as well. Atlas Outdoor, up in Flint, Michigan.
Amazing. And you already answered that one question. What was the one thing you wish you'd known from the very beginning of your company? Now, I like to close out our interview with one last question that really makes you think. And since you've already answered that one, let's try to think of a new one here. How about what's that one thing that you are looking forward to in your business the most in this coming season? It could be anything in terms of product that you're excited to install, a tool that you're excited about using on a job site to speed up your efficiency, whatever it may be. What's that one thing that you're looking forward to this coming season?
You know, I would say that at a baseline, what I'm really looking forward to this year is watching my team come together. I am absolutely nothing without my team. I always feel like I'm underqualified for the position that I'm in. Though I know that I'm not, it's just that lingering feeling, right? You always kind of like, man, I could do better here. I could do better here. But my team that I have just fills every gap. And they are, man, from my people in the office that do all the admin work, and help us with the billing, and that's just one small key component of what they do. And my general manager, for everything that he does, I mean, that guy slaves, man. I'm talking 80-hour weeks. Like he puts in so much work and doesn't complain. Like I love that guy to death. And then my design team, man, we just added some more people onto our staff, and I'm looking forward to basically the capacity that we have now for additional work is monumental, and like it's never been in any other year. There were so many problems that we had in previous years, scattered throughout the years, right? There's every company has their issues, and we did a great job in the last 2 years of pinpointing all of our inefficiencies, and now this is just our year. Like this is just our year to just blast off. We fixed the problems. We got rid of the people that were dragging us down. We brought on people that were forward thinkers, and they were innovative, and they took initiative rather than having to be told everything. We brought on some additional high quality craftsmen, man. These guys, when you guys check out our Instagram and our Facebook and all that, like you'll see what I mean, especially seasoned veteran hardscapers looking at our cuts and looking at our installations. It's just incredible. So, man, I just go back to the capacity that we have for additional work, but greater work this year, and watching my team evolve, grow, and function in the most efficient manner like we've never seen before or anybody else has ever seen before. That's what I'm most looking forward to in 2020.
That's an excellent answer and a great way to finish off this interview. Mike, let our audience know where they can find you and find out more about yourself online.
100%. So the most commonly used is social media, right? So the Facebook and the Instagrams are going to be at Creekside NWI. That's CREEK, S as in Sam, IDE. And then Northwest Indiana's NWI. So at Creekside NWI. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram. You can look me up on Instagram. I'm always posting some funny stuff at Mike Arnold. And that's about it, my man.